A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajeem. Bismillahir rahmanir rahim. So we'll inshallah start the tafsir portion of the verses 62 through 71. This is ruku number 8 of the first juz. And what this means is that again we have reached half of the first juz. Right? If you think back, we've covered half of the first juz, which alhamdulillah is an accomplishment and is a congratulation to all of you for you to be the consistent ones to be coming here to learn the word of Allah, right? So let's start with the dua, which is Allahumma arinal haqqa haqqan warzuqna ittiba'a wa arinal batila batilan warzuqna ijtinaba. O Allah, show us the truth as truth and give us the ability to follow it, and show us falsehood as falsehood and give us the ability to avoid it, inshallah. Ameen ya Rabbal Alameen. Alright, so we'll inshallah start with verse number 62. بعد أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم إن الذين آمنوا والذين هادوا والنصارى والصابئين. Now, one thing is that what we need to take a look at is that sometimes people understand this ayah and confuse it. And the reason why they confuse it is because when we talk about believing in God, right, believing in one Allah, Christians believe in Allah too, right? They believe that there is a God. Jews believe that there is a God. There are so many sects of Hinduism, for example, right? And there are some sects that also believe not in multiple gods, but in a single God, right? So there are multiple people who believe in the oneness of God. However, what is important is that everybody is thinking about this from their own point of view, right? That whatever they believe in, what that means is that, for example, if there is an employee, right, that works for some company, the employee may think he is doing a great job, that he deserves a raise and he deserves to be promoted. However, the boss may not think what the employee is thinking. The boss may think that he may not be doing a good job, right? Similarly, if everybody thinks from their own point of view, that may not be the right point of view, right? What we need to consider is that we need to be thinking about amanu, right, which is believing, which means amanu means believed. So innal ladhina amanu, indeed those who believed, wal ladhina hadu, and those who were Jews, wal nasara or Christians, was sabi'in or sabi'ins, right? All of these people, they are believing it from their own perspective. But what we need to think about is that it needs to be believed in from the perspective of what Allah has told us is the right thing to do, or is the right perspective. Now, Allah says in the Quran that the people who believe in Trinity are disbelievers. So if Christians believe that there is God, but they believe in Trinity, which means that they're not believing in everything from the perspective of Allah, which means that they're not right anyway. So the point here is that when we talk about belief and what it means, it needs to be from the perspective of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And if there's any questions that you have, write it down and I will answer those towards the end of it. Okay? This continues, Man amana billahi, which is those among them who believed in Allah, wal yawmil akhiri, and the last day, wa amila salihan, and did righteousness, right? Now, what is important is that believing in Allah is according to the standard that Allah has set for Tawheed, right? It is what Allah has defined as what is the right thing to do and what is the right thing to believe in. Now, what is important is that different religions, they believe in what afterlife means, right? Every religion has their own concept. Some religions don't believe in anything. They just think that they're going to live in this world and that's it, right? They're done with it. There are some religions that believe, for example, Christianity, that there might be an afterlife, but that there would be no judgment, that they're all done. That Christ has been, what he went through, it's all, all their sins have been forgiven. Then there's Muslims, right? People who believe in Islam, who believe that there is judgment after this life, and then each one of us is going to be judged on the deeds that each one of us does. Now, what is going to be important is, again, that the standards that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave stayed the same throughout all the prophets. No matter which prophet came, the standards that they brought, those standards have not changed from the very beginning of time, and they will not change till the end of time, right? Of what are the right things to do. Now, what is important is, who decides which deed is a righteous deed? Allah decides, not you and I. If we think that, some people, for example, question, what will happen to somebody who does not believe in Allah but does good deeds, right? The point is, if they are not believing in Allah, then sure, they may get some reward for whatever good work they might be doing, but again, it is not ultimately their belief is not according to what Allah has defined as what Tawheed is, and what belief is. So good and bad is relative from our perspective, right? Depending on who you ask. Now, some things may be right for some of us, the same things may be wrong for some of us, right? Some language that is used by maybe some of the youth today, adults like me may think that it's not appropriate, right? But it might be appropriate for the kids of your age, right? So good and bad sometimes can be relative, but again, what we need to think about is what is right and wrong from the perspective of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, right? So for example, things like, consuming riba, alcohol, some people may think it's okay, but that doesn't make it okay, right? That doesn't mean that. Now, good deeds are taught to us by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala through the messengers, right? That's how we knew what is the right thing to do and what is the wrong thing to do. Now, are what? They are the six pillars of Iman, right? So we need to be able to understand and know and believe in these pillars, because they are your pillars of Iman. Your Iman is not really there if these pillars are not strong. And if the pillars don't exist, the building of Iman is not going to stand up at all, right? No matter how many good deeds you end up doing. Allah says in Surah Baqarah that we are going to study is your righteousness is not about where you face. Righteousness is not which direction you are praying in, right? There's a whole lot of other things that comes under the umbrella of righteousness, and we will inshallah study that once we get. Verse number 62 continues, "Falahum ajruhum inda rabbihim." They will have their reward with their Lord. "Wala khawfun alayhim," and no fear will there be concerning them. "Wala hum yahzanun," nor will they grieve. Now, this ayah provides a very powerful looking at what is Iman, right? So Iman is, three aspects of Iman were mentioned that we saw in the previous portion of this ayah, right? One is amanu billahi, which is believe in Allah. The second thing was yawm al-akhiri, day of judgment. And the third thing is wa amila salihan, which is righteous deed. Now, if you have, and just think about this, just stay with me when I say this, is that take a look at the sequence of how it is mentioned, right? If you believe in Allah, which was the first thing that was mentioned, right? You will do good deeds. If you believe in Allah, you will do good deeds, right? Which is the second thing mentioned. And if you you will believe in the day of judgment, which is the second thing mentioned. And in order to understand, in order to pass what is going to happen on the day of judgment, you will do more of the righteous deeds, right? That is sort of the sequence. Now, for somebody who does not believe in this, what might happen is they may not believe in righteous deeds, right? So some people may not even care about some of this stuff. One thing I wanted to mention is that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created the world. Do we see justice in this world? Do we see justice all around us? Do we? Yes, no, maybe? Not really? Okay, what do the others think? Not really? Kind of? Okay. Mostly we see injustice. People are getting killed, right? People are getting, are being killed for no reason maybe, right? Some people are so poor, they don't have anything to eat. Some people have so much money, they don't know where to spend, right? So there is inequality, there is injustice, right? But Allah is perfect. So there may be no justice in this world, but there is going to be justice at some point in time. That is what our belief is. Now, a person may kill 10 people in this world, but what is the most that we can do to him? Kill him once, and the person is dead, right? He has killed 10 people. Now he is going to be measured on the day of judgment, and he is going to be rewarded for whatever he did on the day of judgment. What this means is that, again, the sequence is the same. If we believe in Allah, we will believe in the day of judgment, and then we will do more of the righteous deeds to pass on the day of judgment. Now again, what is going to happen is that some people may not believe that doing righteous deeds is easy, right? You have to run around, sometimes you have to do volunteer work, sometimes you have to be stretched for so many things. Why bother with all that, right? Why spend all that time? Now, if somebody does not believe in righteous deeds, they may not believe in day of judgment either. If they don't believe in any day of judgment, they may not even believe in Allah. And that is what some of the atheist people might be at somewhere on that spectrum, right? They may not believe in Allah at the end. So the point here again is that whoever follows this formula that you believe in Allah, you believe in the day of judgment, and then you do more of the righteous deeds, will have no fear, right? That is what it says, is that those people are not going to have any fear, and they will not be the. That Alhamdulillah, for us to be able to sit through in this class right now, we are here because we fear that. We are believing in Allah, we are mindful of the day of judgment, that there is going to be accountability. We talked about that you will be rewarded for every small little good deed that you do. You open the door for somebody, you're going to be rewarded for that, right? But if you shut the door on somebody's face, even if it was a joke, you will be rewarded for that also. Reward can be good and bad. Reward doesn't have to be good all the time. It's just a reward. Sometimes good, sometimes bad, depending on what our deeds are, right? So we need to be mindful of that and say Alhamdulillah that He has given us the opportunity to sit through. Is that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, verily those who say our Lord is Allah alone, and then they stand firm, on them the angels will descend, that fear not, grieve not, right? Angels descend on a place where the name of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is being taken. There might be, and this is no joke either, there might be angels around you right now at this point in time, because you are studying the word of Allah, right? So feel blessed that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given us that ability. Okay, so verse number 63 starts with وَإِذْ أَخَذْنَا مِيثَاقَكُمْ, and recall when we took your covenant, وَرَفَعْنَا فَوْقَكُمُ الطُّورَ, O children of Israel, to abide by the Torah, and we raised over you the mount. Now we've all obviously heard of Mount Tur, right? Now here the word misakakum, which means, it basically, there are other words for taking a promise in the Quran. Misakakum basically means taking a promise with accountability, with responsibility, right? So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying that He took a promise from the people of Bani Israel, right? And obviously there's more details that we will study about this later, but think of it as something like this, is that if you go for a job, and if you get the job, they have you sit down and first tell you what the job is all about, right? And then tell you, are you okay taking this job, right? So that's what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala did with the people of Bani Israel, right? And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is reminding them, right, is a huge mountain, right? And the previous ayah was Warafana Fawqakum Tur, which means it was raised, the mount was raised. Now There's obviously different interpretations of some of this, and I'll not go into the detail of all that. Some people say the mount was literally raised in front of them, right? There are some people who have other interpretations of that. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has not told us anything specific in the Quran, so we'll not go into the details of what it is, and we don't want to get occupied in there. The point here is that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, for example, in Surah Yusuf, right, talked about so many people. He talked about the king, he talked about the Aziz, he talked about his wife, he talked about the other people who were the prisoners with Yusuf alayhi salam in the jail. We don't know the names of all those people, so we don't really need to get focused on what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala did not tell us. It's not for us to know, so we will not worry about what happened. But again, think about this mountain. If it was actually physically raised in front of them, right? The verse 63 continues, "Khuzu ma ataynakum biquwwa," saying, take what we have given you with determination. Now the primary audience here are the Israelites, right? And obviously this happened many generations ago. But why is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala saying, take what we have given you? Because now the Quran is coming at the time of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. What happened with the Israelites was back with which prophet? Musa alayhi salam. That was many hundreds and thousands of years ago, right? The reason why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying it this way is because the nation of Bani Israel considers themselves as a continuation of their own people. Even today, the land of Palestine is occupied because they believe the land belonged to them from many generations ago, right? That's why they've occupied that land, right? So they believe in that continuation. That's why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is referring to the people at the time of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, but he is also, keeping that continuation in mind. Now the covenant was already taken. They had already given their promise to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So Bani Israel, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave them, which was hold tight to the teachings of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The favor on us is He has given us teachings also. The question that we need to ask is, are we holding tight to the teachings of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? Right? Bihablillahi, and hold firmly to the rope of Allah. Right? This is an ayah in the Quran. Verse number 63 continues, وَاذْكُرُوا مَا فِيهِ لَعَلَّكُمْ تَتَّقُونَ, saying, take what we have given you with determination and remember what is in it, that perhaps you may become righteous. So what we need to remember is that, is it enough just to know what Quran is all about in general? Or is it important to know what each word of the Quran says? Each word of the Quran is for you and for me. It is not for the people who came 1400 years ago. It was for them when they were alive. They are gone now. It is for you and me right now. It is for the people who are living. It is not for the people when they die that you read the Quran over them 100 times and think that that is going to bless them. It might maybe give them barakah, but again, the accountability is on the deeds that you do while you're alive, unless you left something behind that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala told us is going to benefit you after you die, right? Which is, if you created an institution that is going to benefit where Quran is being taught, if you left behind some knowledge, if you left behind good children who are following in the way of Allah, that is going to benefit you. Is Allahumma aini ala dhikrika wa shukrika wa husni ibadatik. Okay, oh Allah, assist me in remembering you, in thanking you, and in worshipping you in the best of manners. Memorize this dua and ask for this dua after every salah, because it is only from Allah that you can even pray to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. If Allah does not will, right, we can't even do that. There are people who can't even do that physically. Verse number 64, ثُمَّ تَوَلَّيْتُمْ مِنْ بَعْدِ ذَلِكَ, then you turned away after that. فَلَوْلَا فَضْلُ اللَّهِ عَلَيْكُمْ, and if not for the favor of Allah upon you, وَرَحْمَتُهُ, and His mercy, لَكُنْتُمْ مِنَ الْخَاسِرِينَ, you would have been among the losers. Right? So one thing is, again, the immediate audience for this ayah is again the people who were there physically at the time of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and the people that we are, people like us who are here right now, who are listening to this ayah. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is obviously addressing the people who had gone back. Now, what does this mean? So, what this means is that the people had turned their back, which means they got Torah at the time of Musa alayhi salam. They turned the back on it, which means they were not paying any heed or any attention to the teachings of the Torah at that time. Now, some Muslims, they believe this too. What do they believe? They believe that the Quran came 1400 years ago. The time has changed. Now we are in a modern world. Now we have internet. Now things happen quickly. Now we don't really have to follow everything that the Quran says. And that is absolutely false. Quran stands true. Doesn't matter what the time is, right? Doesn't matter what age we are in. It stands true because it is going to be there for time till the end of time. Okay? So we need to remember that we don't need to think about some of the things that we hear some other people say, oh, it happened back then, we don't really have to do that now, let's change something, it's the modern world. Sometimes people say there was sunnah of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam was, for example, he used to sit down on the floor and eat. Right? Today we have table and chairs. People say, today we have table and chairs, we don't really need to sit on the floor anymore, which is not really true. If you still want to follow the sunnah, you can. It's a choice, right, that each one of us makes. Now, what was the favor of Allah that Allah gave them? Allah forgave them. He forgave them after their transgressions that they were doing over and over again, right? What is the favor of Allah on each one of us? He has given us the Quran as guidance. He has given us the provisions, but He has given you Islam. We could have been people who would have not, people who are non-Muslims, right? We could have been the people who don't know anything about Islam. But this is a favor of Allah that He has given you knowledge. He has given you birth in families who are Muslim families, allowing you to follow the religion of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Okay? So again, a dua that we need to make for ourselves is Allahumma inni as'aluka min fadlik, O Allah, I ask you for your favor. Okay? That we need make when we go where? This is a dua that we're supposed to make when we go where? Inside a masjid, yes. Jazakallah khair. Okay, if you don't know this dua, you need to memorize this dua. Okay? Alright, verse number 65. وَلَقَدْ عَلِمْتُمُ الَّذِينَ اعْتَدَوْا مِنْكُمْ فِي السَّبْتِ. And you had already known about those who transgressed amongst you concerning the Sabbath. فَقُلْنَا لَهُمْ كُونُوا كِرَدَةً خَاسِئِينَ. And we said to them, be apes despised. Now what does this mean? Again, these are some of the reminders of some of the covenants that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala took from the people of Bani Israel. Now what were those? So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying here, for sure you already knew the people who transgressed the Sabbath, right? What did I say? People of Bani Israel, they believed that they were a continuation of the people from before. The story of Sabbath was not in their books, but they knew the story very, very well. Even their kids knew that story. So they knew the people who were the people who transgressed. Now, there were three groups at the time. One who transgressed, one who didn't really transgress, but who was just a spectator. They were just watching things happen, but didn't say it was wrong. They didn't do wrong themselves, but didn't say it was wrong either. And the third group was the people who said it's wrong and they did not transgress. Now again, there is interpretations of, did the people actually turn into apes, or did their mentality went and dropped to the level of apes, right? From being a human to apes. But the point here is, how many groups were turned into that? One or two or three? Two? One? Just one who transgressed? It was the one who transgressed and the one who watched other people get transgressed, but did not stop them. Right? They were the people who were also punished because they were not stopping wrong from happening. Right? So we need to make sure, if you see wrong happening around you, if you see somebody get bullied, for example, in your school, stop it. Right? You either stop it with your hand, you can go talk to somebody, but do something about it. If you see wrong happening around you, in your neighborhoods, in your families, in the people that you know, the people at the masjid, stop it. Don't just sit and watch wrong things happen, okay? Because you would be considered amongst that as well. So be mindful of that. Now, some practicing Jews, even today they observe, Sabt, which is Sabbath, on Saturdays. They will not do any work on Saturdays, right? So there's still some practicing Jews who do that. The question here is, some people say, and we'll not get into the theory of that, but some people say man evolved from monkeys. The question is, if man really evolved from monkeys, why are the monkeys still there? Right? I mean, it's just weird. But again, we'll not get into the details of all that right now. But the point is, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made some of these people to the level of apes. What do monkeys do? Ever seen a monkey? Ever seen a monkey?
Imitate.
They imitate. They'll just do what you want, what you do. You raise your hand, you give them something, they'll bring the hand out to grab it. Right? The point here is, Hadith of Rasulullah says, that you will follow the ways of those nations who were before you, span by span, cubit by cubit. So much so that even if they entered a hole of a mastigator, you would follow them. We said, O Allah's Messenger, do you mean Jews and Christians? And he said, whom else? The point here is, are we imitating the people of other today? If we see this hip-hop guy who's very famous, who seems pretty cool, are we trying to look like him? Are we following these sports stars, right? If they look pretty cool and they, comb their hair a certain way, or they shake their heads, like crazily, or they walk in a strange manner, are we trying to imitate that? That's a question that each one of us needs to ask. Are we really at that level of monkeys that we are imitating people and not realizing what we are doing? Think about that. Think about what people have that almost seems like they're falling to the ground, right? Some people are pretty into that also. Is that pretty cool? Maybe. But is it the right thing to do? Not. Right? Okay, verse number 66. فَجَعَلْنَاهَا نَقَالًا لِمَا بَيْنَ يَدَيْهَا, and we made it a deterrent punishment for those who were present, وَمَا خَلَفَهَا, and those who succeeded them, وَمَوْعِظَةً لِلْمُتَّقِينَ, and a lesson for those who fear Allah. Now the point here is, some people think that the punishments that people get, even in Islam, is hard, right? For example, if somebody steals anything, what's the punishment for them? Exactly, cut their hand off. Why is it hard? Because it is supposed to be a deterrent for others also, right? The others need to be deterred. Now, and there is a lesson in doing that for the people who are around, who are watching it, right? That this will happen to you also. This is exactly what Allah is telling us right now by telling us some of these stories. This is a word we studied, right, at the very beginning of Surah Baqarah. Anybody remembers? Anybody remembers? Besides the Hufaz here? When did we study this word? ذَلِكَ الْكِتَابُ لَا رَيْبَ فِيهِ هُدًى لِلْمُتَّقِينَ. Remember? So again, remember, muttaqi is who? Who fears Allah, right? But who also loves Allah at the same time. We get to where the story of Baqarah is, right? Where the word, the Baqarah comes from, which is the cow. Now, okay, so وَإِذْ قَالَ مُوسَى لَقَوْمِهِ إِنَّ اللَّهَ يَأْمُرُكُمْ أَن تَذْبَحُوهَا بَقَرًا. And recall when Moses said to his people, indeed Allah commands you to slaughter a cow. Right? This is another violation of a covenant that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had taken to him. So at this point in time, it's basically saying Musa said to his people, right? He is still associating himself to his people. There is a time that's going to come where Musa is, basically going to separate himself from his people. Now, the point here is that why did Musa say, indeed Allah commands? Musa said that because he wants to make sure people understand that this is a command from Allah. This is not something that he is telling them, right? He's not saying something because of his own liking. Now, the hypocrites at the time of Rasulullah also said stuff like, oh, he is going for this fight at the Battle of Badr because he wants to, gain something on his own, right? Same thing happened at the time of Battle of Uhud, right? But the point here is Musa wants to make sure people understand this is a command coming from Allah and he is not saying it on his own. Now, does anybody know the sort of the background of some of this, of what happened here? Why they were asked to slaughter a cow?
So there were like a bunch of brothers. So one of them had been murdered, and so they were trying to find out who's the murderer.
So basically, somebody got murdered, right? And they didn't know who that person was. And then they came to Musa, thinking him as the knowledgeable and asking him to help, right? So, Baqarah, we'll actually talk about it a couple of slides. So, they said, so when Musa said, you go slaughter a cow, right? What are they saying? They said, do you take us in ridicule? Serious? Right? That's the kind of face they might have made, right? Are you really serious? Are you joking? I mean, we're asking you to solve a murder. You're asking us to slaughter a cow. How does that even make sense? Right? So, what we need to remember is, prophets are not jokers. They're not telling anything for a joke. They may humor people at times, but it's not a joke that they're making to anybody, right? So, what we need to remember is that what did Musa say? Musa said, Qala a'udhu billahi an akuna minal jahilin. He said, I seek refuge in Allah from being amongst the ignorant. Now, making jokes of Allah's commands is very, very serious. Okay, this is something we need to remember, and something that we should say when we are sitting amongst people and they start making fun of stuff like, how homosexuality got introduced in America? Through comedies. People initially used to make jokes about it, right? And then eventually it became something to a level where it is now has made its way into the Constitution of the US, right? Where there's an amendment about that. The point here is that joking seems pretty shallow, but it has serious implications, especially when you're making jokes of things where Allah has issued commandments about that. Okay, so we need to be very, very careful around some of that. One thing that you need to remember is that living in America, you need to be very careful about what somebody says to you in school also, right? So if somebody uses any derogatory language like, oh, man, and sometimes people hide their Muslim identity because of that, right? They don't want to show themselves as Muslims. And so if somebody says stuff to you like, it could be jokingly also, oh man, you guys can go and blow up something, right? You need to know the language that you need to be speaking to people like that. In America, right, the language is what? What's the language people understand? Slang? English? It's the language of lawsuits. Somebody says something to you like that, you can go and tell them, man, I'm going to sue you for defamatory comments. And then people back off. You file somebody threatening with a lawsuit, people back off. So if somebody even makes a joke to you, you need to take a stand for that. And not just let it go because it was a joke. Okay, because this is no joking stuff. Saying was, there are three kinds of ignorance. One is ignorance where people say, I don't know. That's simple. Then there is an ignorance which says, I don't know that I don't know. Think about that. I don't know that I don't know. And then there is this other kind which says, I know, but I don't act. Right? Or do we fall in any of these categories for any of the commandments of Allah? Right? Do we know stuff but we don't obey? Right? Think about that. It's pretty serious. Ignorance is, there is a saying which says ignorance is bliss. Sometimes ignorance is not a bliss. So verse number 68 says, قَالُوا ادْعُ لَنَا رَبَّكَ يُبَيِّن لَنَا مَا هِي. They said, call upon your Lord to make clear to us what it is. Now, what are the people of Bani Israel doing by saying that? They are joking with Musa. Musa is telling them, go slaughter a cow. What are they saying? Call upon your Lord. They're telling Musa, go talk to your Lord. They're not even saying our Lord. They're saying, Musa, go talk to your Lord, right? And so that he can make clear to us what it is. Now, and think about this when somebody says that. Oh, man, he's making another joke now. He's asking us to slaughter a cow, right? What kind of joke is that? When somebody asks too many questions, sometimes you can sense that they're not serious, right? Because sometimes people ask questions for the sake of questioning, not for the sake of understanding. And we need to be mindful of that also. Verse 68 continues, قَالَ إِنَّهُ يَقُولُ إِنَّهَا بَقَرَةٌ. Moses said, Allah says, it is a cow which is neither old nor virgin, la faridun wala bikr awanum bayna dhalik, but median between that, so do faf'alu ma tu'marun, so do what you are commanded, right? So now the important thing on this ayah to know is that Musa is basically telling them faf'alu ma tu'marun, which means don't think about it, just go do it, right? Now he's given you another guidance. It is this kind of a cow. Don't ask too many questions. Just go do it. But what do? Ask another question. They said, قَالُوا ادْعُ لَنَا رَبَّكَ يُبَيِّن لَنَا مَا لَوْنُهَا. They said, call upon your Lord to show us what is her color. قَالَ إِنَّهُ يَقُولُ إِنَّهَا بَقَرَةٌ. He says, which is now Allah is saying, it is a yellow cow. Safra'u faqi'ul lawnuha tasarrun nazirin, bright in color, pleasing to the observers. So what are these guys doing? They're asking another question, right? They're not serious about the guidance that they're getting. Now, obviously they're not asking questions to understand it, they're asking questions for the sake of questioning. Verse number 70. So now they're saying, قَالُوا ادْعُ لَنَا رَبَّكَ يُبَيِّن لَنَا مَا هِيَ. Now they're saying, they said, call upon your Lord to make clear to us what it is. Innal baqara tashabaha alayna. Indeed, all cows look alike to us. Wa inna insha Allahu lamuhtadun. And indeed, we, if Allah wills, will be guided. What does that mean? That means now they're becoming serious. Now they're asking a question which makes sense. That now you've given us some saraf, but all the cows look the same. All the cows look same to us. So can you help us? And inshallah, if Allah wills, we will be guided, which means we will be guided to the right cow. The point here is Musa gave them guidance, but they still kept on asking the questions. The point to make here is that there is a hadith which says if they would not have said inshallah in this here, they would have never found the cow. So the thing to remember is when you say something that you intend to do, say inshallah, right? What was that ayah in Surah Kaf, which also says you need to say inshallah? Anybody remembers? What is that ayah?
When like the gardens.
Before that?
In the cave.
The ayah or the actual story?
No, not the story, the ayah, which refers to that. In Surah Kaf. We're supposed to read Surah Kaf every Friday, right? So what is that ayah?
قالوا لو شاء ربنا لأنزل الملائكة.
No, in Surah Kaf. وَلَا تَقُولَنَّ لِشَيْءٍ إِنِّي فَاعِلٌ ذَلِكَ غَدًا إِلَّا أَن يَشَاءَ اللَّهُ. Right? Except if Allah wills. So again, now obviously was getting fed up with some other questions. So now he's saying, قَالَ إِنَّهُ يَقُولُ إِنَّهَا بَقَرَةٌ. He says it is a cow, لَا ذَلُولٌ تُثِيرُ الْأَرْضَ, neither trained to plow the earth, nor وَلَا تَسْقِي الْحَرْثَ, nor to irrigate the field. مُسَلَّمَةٌ لَا شِيَةَ فِيهَا, one free from fault with no spot upon her. Right? The verse continues, and now he's basically telling them it's a cow that has no spot on them, so it's pretty clear. قَالُوا الْآنَ جِئْتَ بِالْحَقِّ فَذَبَحُوهَا وَمَا كَادُوا يَفْعَلُونَ. They said, now you have come with the truth, So they slaughtered her, but they could hardly do it. The point here is, look at the response that they are giving. They are telling Musa, now you are telling us the haqq, as if he was lying before. Prophets don't lie, right? So they had no respect for their own prophet. Do we have respect for Rasul Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam? Do we stand for, if anybody says anything to him, do we stand for, the alliance in saying that he is our prophet and have that respect for him? That's something we need to think about. How much of a respect do we hold for Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam in our hearts, right? What we also need to know is that some Muslims, again, they try to say, they have tried to come up with different things, communicating that, Islam, again, Islam need to conform to the new values. There are all kinds of things which are happening. But eventually, as part of this story, what happened was they found the cow, they slaughtered it. Now what happened eventually? Initially, the initial command was slaughter a cow. They kept on asking questions. Eventually, the story ended that they finally found a cow. It belonged to somebody. That person didn't want to sell the cow to them and was asking for a lot of money. And Musa said, you have to slaughter a cow now. So eventually they had to pay a lot of money to get the cow, right? Eventually it happened, but they had to pay a big price for that, right? So again, we need to remember is that don't ask questions unnecessarily. If there's a command from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, just do it. You may not understand what's the benefit behind it, does not matter. Just do it, right? So is that it is, there's another ayah in the Quran which basically, says that their meat will not reach Allah, nor will their blood, but what reaches Allah or what reaches Him is piety from you. The biggest question that I want everybody to take away, right, from the idol that each one of us has for ourselves. That was the idol for them. What is your cow? What is your Baqarah? That's something that you guys need to think about. What is your Baqarah? Is your Baqarah the video games? Is your Baqarah getting distraction with something else? Is your Baqarah the money? Is your Baqarah something else that takes you time away from what you need to be doing? Right? That's a question that we need to be asking each one of our own selves. What we need to remember is my time with Fortnite and the Snapchat and the Apex Legends, etc. Are you serious? Right? That's not the shape. That's not what we should be saying to our parents when they say, guys, you have spent enough time, okay, on some of the stuff, right? So we need to think about some of these lessons. What do I worship? Am I worshipping Allah or am I worshipping everything else besides Allah? So, again, this is something that, what we need to focus on is Allah commands you to slaughter your cow. So we need to slaughter each of our cows, right? And we need to determine, are the pillars of my Iman strong and firm? Do I believe in being rewarded even for small good deeds? Do I strive every day to do righteous deeds for the pleasure of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? Am I willing to learn lessons from the nations of the past? Do I know my cow and have I slaughtered it? That's the biggest question that we need to be asking ourselves, right? You write down your favorite gems, what you learned specifically from the ayahs today at the end of the room. So we'll be asking for it. أنت السميع العليم وتب علينا إنك أنت التواب الرحيم. جزاكم الله خير. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.